Now, it seems to me that the original promise of the communist dictatorship, the dictatorship of the proletariat, was that you would get a greater economic output, greater economic productivity than the capitalist West. Now, from the 1920s onwards, it became very clear that not only did you not even remotely compete with the West, that you destroyed vast sections of your own economy and of, in fact, your population under a communist dictatorship. Now, of course, rather than give up the ideals, I think, are all about power, not about economic productivity. That's just the bribe that you're offered. We'll make you rich if you obey us, if you submit to us. They switched from an economic argument, particularly in the 1960s, like after the crimes of Stalin came out under Khrushchev, right, when the Cult of Personality and all of the gulags came out under Solzhenitsyn's writings and so on. They switched from an economic argument to, as you point out, to race, to environmentalism, and to cultural decadence. And I wonder if you could help people understand that shift, because a lot of the younger listeners to this show have never seen Marxism except in its sort of race baiting, gender baiting, environmentalist, and culturally debasing form.
But this new strategy was already proposed by the Hungarian philosopher Georg Lucács in 1910, around 1910. And the Soviet elite didn't accept it. But later, I believe what happened was this. When the Soviets invaded Germany, the offices of Ludwig von Mises were in the eastern part. So all his archives fall in the hands of the communists. They have been reading this and saying, oh, this guy was right. Communist economy is impossible. He demonstrated this in a very simple way. That if there is no free market, things have no price. And if there is no price, you cannot make calculation of price. And so the planet economy is impossible. This is very simple and very true. So I believe they got persuaded and they said, we have to create something new. And then they invented, as proposed, it's not economic anymore, it's social and psychological.
And how does the Frankfurt School fit into this, which has, I think, done a lot to infiltrate the West, particularly the media, the news, and the campuses, of course. And as you point out, it has a kind of decadence to it that is materialistic and hedonistic and kind of gross, and was not allowed under Stalin's Russia at all.
Georg Lucács is not generally known as a member of the Frankfurt School, but he was, in fact, the creator of the Frankfurt School. And all the others didn't add too much to his thought. He said oh, everything that we saw appearing in the 60s was already in the works of Georg Lucács, especially the book History and Class Consciousness, a very important book in the history of communism. And these people of the Frankfurt School only gave some aesthetical adornment to Georg Lucács' thought.
And so what was the purpose for these Marxists to take over the culture? What was their end goal and end game?
Control people's minds. Listen, the thing that is most difficult to control is economy. So they said, well, you always thought in control economy. Let's change the position. We'll give some freedom to economy and control everything else. We control the culture, we control education, we control the press, we control people's mind, and there is also some economic freedom that will not make do us any harm. As in China. In China, you have a certain margin of economic freedom, but the society is put under total control of the government, under other aspects, especially psychological.
And the degradation of internal standards of morality, which we'll get to sort of the left's war on Christian morality in a sec, but the degradation and corruption of people's internal moral standards does seem to lead to me to a loosening of restraint, particularly sexual restraint. And what that means, of course, is you get a lot of moms who have kids but no father to provide for their kids, which makes them a huge base for the expansion of state power. You get addicts of various kind who are told that, drugs are cool and hip and so on. And you get people who don't add to their human capital because that's considered to be bourgeois and stifling your creativity. So there's a lot of loosening of self-restraint, which creates a lot of chaos in society. And then the government steps in and says, hey, we can help you with all of that. You just have to give up property.
Of course, from the moment you decide to exploit every psychological insatisfaction, individual insatisfaction, there are no limits anymore. We have to destroy everything because everybody has some complaint against something. This guy is unsatisfied with his wife or with the sex in which he was born, and so on. You have to change everything and destroy everything. But in order to understand the things, you have to go back, always to go back to Georg Lucács. Georg Lucács didn't care the least for morality. He used to share his wife with another guy. He was an immoralist. And all this thought in the 60s was deeply influenced by him.
Right. You've got a good narrative or a good way of explaining how some of the Marxist ideals jumped the Atlantic Ocean, of course, from Europe in the Second World War and post-Second World War period, and landed particularly in American universities. And then, of course, with the GI Bill, what happened was all of these soldiers went into the universities newly populated by these Marxist ideologues, and this was a particularly virulent way that the virus of leftism spread throughout America and is still continuing to escalate now.
Yeah, but Americans imported this guy. They imported Max Horkheimer. He was the leader of the Frankfurt School, and Theodor Adorno, and Habermas, and all the others, and Herbert Marcuse, especially Herbert Marcuse. And they infected Americans with all this poison. This guy, all of them were, as philosophers, they are very mediocre. But as political figures, political characters, they were very powerful. They influenced a lot of people, especially with the book, The Authoritarian Personality, which demonstrated scientifically that America was exactly the same as Nazi society. And many people believe in this. This is a huge stupidity, but many people believe it. Well, these Frankfurters had at least a virtue. They were sincere. They created something, they call it a negative dialectics. And they didn't propose anything. They want only to destroy everything. And they were sincere. And they really did it.